TheFlipside.io, sponsored by Thinker. Friday, July 17, 2020, Trump campaign update. President Donald Trump demoted his longtime campaign manager on Wednesday, a move aimed at shoring up his re-election bid as he trails Democratic candidate Joe Biden in opinion polls less than 4 months before the November 3rd vote. In a Facebook post, Trump said campaign manager Brad Parscale would be replaced by Bill Stepien, who has been the deputy campaign manager. That was from Reuters. Biden is ahead of Trump nationally by an average of 8.6% as of Thursday night. That was from Real Clear Politics. Many on both sides agree that Biden is a stronger opponent than Hillary Clinton was. Unfortunately for Trump, there is one massive factor that puts a ceiling on his ability to change the fundamental dynamics of the election, namely that Joe Biden is not Hillary Clinton. People like and trust Biden in a way they never did with Clinton. In 2016, more voters trusted Trump, with just 37% of those polled by Quinnipiac saying they believe Clinton to be more honest. Today, Biden leads Trump by 15 points on the question of whether voters believe the candidates to be honest. Trump was on pace for a close re-election just 5 months ago, and if the economy rebounds, a more tempered Trump could reclaim his incumbency advantage once more. But a massive factor in Trump's poor performance is beyond his control. Voters' loathing of Clinton played an enormous role in 2016. Say what you will about Biden, he just doesn't inspire that kind of reaction. That was from Tina Lowe of the Washington Examiner. Polls consistently show that Trump supporters are more excited to vote for him than presumptive Democrat nominee Joe Biden supporters are to vote for him. But while Biden voters may not be all that excited about voting for Biden, they're very enthusiastic about voting against Trump. And that gives Biden a pretty strong edge because Trump supporters don't despise Biden the way that they despise Hillary Clinton in 2016. Registered voters with negative opinions of both Trump and Biden preferred Biden to Trump by a whopping 23-point margin in the polling Nationscape conducted in June. They also rated Biden less negatively overall, with only 33% of this group saying that they had a very unfavorable opinion of Biden, compared to 62% who said the same of Trump. These results, especially when combined with recent political science research on the power of negative partisanship, suggest that the public's strong dislike of Trump is probably the more consequential enthusiasm gap in 2020. That was from Michael Tesler of 538 from the right. Thus far, Biden has not been beating Trump. Trump has been beating Trump. The campaign at this point needs to refocus its energy on exploiting Biden's weaknesses. These are a long record to attack, an inability to keep up with Trump on the campaign trail, difficulty with public speaking, and questionable mental health. The first of these is open for attack all day long. The other issues, however, are not open to direct attack but can be utilized by forcing Biden out into the open where voters will see these weaknesses firsthand. The best opportunity for this will be the debates. Once voters actually see the two candidates side by side, it will be a huge bonus for Trump. The Biden campaign recognizes this too and will try to find a way out of these debates. Trump must not let this happen because it will be his best chance to reverse these poll numbers. That was from Tom Searle of The Resurgent. The problem with Trump's campaign isn't who's putting out ads on TV and Facebook. The problem is Trump. Trump has tweeted small and tacky insults about Republican Senator Mitt Romney being infected with the virus after the senator tested negative. He tried picking a fight with NASCAR's Bubba Wallace over a controversy everybody had moved on from. He suffered the delusion that it was somehow a good idea for him to throw himself into defending the Confederate flag. It's not too late for Trump, but he's choking. A new campaign manager isn't going to change that. Only Trump can. That was from Eddie Scarry of the Washington Examiner. Are there secret Trump voters out there? Americans who are certain to vote for him but unwilling to say to a pollster? Sure. I don't know how many there are and what percentage of the electorate they are. If they're not close to 10%, Trump's in deep trouble. The available polling shows Trump down by a lot in the states he won last time around. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Florida. When you say this, Trump supporters scoff that their man won states he was trailing last time, which is true, but he didn't jump 10 points on election day. This presidency has accomplishments, but they're on issues that aren't the forefront of Americans' minds right now. It's a better and safer world with the Islamic State smashed to pieces and Abu Bakr, al-Baghdadi, and Qasem Soleimani 6 feet under. Conservatives will cheer Trump's judicial selections, even if some recent decisions at the Supreme Court will frustrate them. Criminal justice reform was the right policy, even if it didn't solve every problem in the system. Right to try legislation offered new hope to lots of Americans struggling with serious diseases. The president doesn't talk about these things much. That was from Jim Garrotti of National Review. There is no doubt Mr. Trump is at risk of losing. This is in part the result of the president's uneven response to 2020's two big crises, the coronavirus and radical unrest. Yet as big a part is the weirdness of a campaign cycle that has so far been dominated by only two stories. The press has doggedly and daily blamed Mr. Trump for a novel pandemic and for violence in liberal cities, and to ensure that the election boils down to a referendum on only those questions. But this isn't the way of elections, and there's no reason to think this dynamic will reign through November. Americans have concerns far beyond Arizona's hospital capacity or Seattle's East Precinct. Polls show they remain focused on the issues that traditionally define elections: jobs, taxes, healthcare, energy prices, trade, Supreme Court nominees. To date, they have heard almost nothing about the candidates' differences on these topics. That's from Kimberly A. Strassel of the Wall Street Journal. Again, that was from the right. From the left, perhaps Stepien will persuade Trump to wear a mask more often, which would be welcome from a public health perspective. But the political damage was done months ago when the president effectively abdicated responsibility for the gravest national emergency in decades. Even after more than 135,000 Americans have died, there is still no cohesive national strategy apart from unenforced federal health guidelines. Last weekend, researchers from Quinnipiac University asked voters which candidate would do a better job of handling the coronavirus. 35% chose Trump, 59% chose Biden. As the pandemic enters its sixth month, the case numbers are rising in 40 states according to a Times tally, and figures from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention show that over the past week, the number of new infections reportedly daily has averaged almost 62,000. This is now the coronavirus election, and Trump can't escape it by swapping campaign managers. That was from John Cassidy of The New Yorker. What is his administration doing to make his re-election more likely? They waged a campaign against top infectious disease specialist Anthony Fauci, which they're now trying to walk back. They're calling in officials from across the government for interviews to quiz them about their loyalty to Trump. How about a new rescue package to deal with the continued economic devastation the country is suffering? Republicans in Congress are grudgingly getting around to it with little input from the administration, which apparently can't be bothered. These are not the actions of a group of people who think they're in a tight battle for their political lives. That was from Paul Waldman of The Washington Post. Trump has, in recent weeks, chosen a number of political battles that polls increasingly show do not move the needle in his direction, and if anything, shows the limitations of his unceasing base strategy. 61% disapprove of his plans to reopen schools, and only 29% approve. The same Quinnipiac poll showed a startling move against the Confederate flag, with 56% calling it a symbol of racism and just 35% saying it was more about Southern pride. He has criticized the Black Lives Matter movement, cast aspersions about the true nature of the protesters, and played down the idea that there is a problem with police killing black people. But 67% of Americans support the movement, and 69% of Americans said George Floyd's death was a sign of broader problems in treatment of black Americans by police, rather than an isolated incident. Trump's decision to fight back against the mere idea that we have a problem with police treatment of black people has placed him on an island politically. That was from Aaron Blake at The Washington Post. Former Senator Al Franken writes, last month, Trump whiffed on the ultimate softball question when Sean Hannity asked him what he hoped to accomplish in his second term. Actually, he didn't whiff. He took a third strike lobbed waist high over the heart of the plate. Most Americans want to build on Obamacare, not abandon it. We want our government agency run by competent professionals, not crooked cronies. We want a system of taxation that rewards work, not capital, and that raises enough revenue to meet the needs of American families. We want to meaningfully address systematic racism. We want roads and bridges and trains which at least resemble those in the other developed countries. Joe Biden is not Franklin Roosevelt, but he is Joe Biden, a fundamentally decent man who could begin healing some of the divisions that this president has deliberately exploited and deepened. That was from Al Franken at CNN. And that concludes the week. Friday, July 17th, 2020. Have a fine weekend. Thank you.